What we're seeing here is in Croatia. It's a takeoff. Notice how the plane tilts. It starts moving toward the edge, and at that moment it goes off the runway. Now we'll watch what happens through the window. At that moment, it goes onto the ground. The engine is practically right next to the ground. Now, obviously they had to stop the flight. No. This happened in Croatia on flight OU 412 from Croatia to Frankfurt. Obviously they had to cancel the high-speed takeoff. This involved Croatia Airlines. No one was injured. Nothing else happened. Just a scare. And obviously the cancellation of the flight. We start today with this image and the information. Take a look. Well, let's go to the next report. Check out what the Ukrainians have invented. Just take a look at this. This is a, they've specialized in drones now. Well, check out this drone. It's a hexacopter, according to reports, and it only has capacity for one person. The drone goes and can carry an injured person in the middle of combat. This, can also work quite well to transport equipment, to transport critical supplies, or to carry away an injured person. When, this person simply needs to be treated urgently in the middle of war. It's, part of what's being proposed. This is part of what's being shown now that the project is complete. The finished product, so to speak, there it is landing. Just check this out. Let's listen to the moment when it lands. And right there the propellers stop, and in theory, a doctor, nurses or medical staff would already be there on the ground for the person, so they don't have to keep them like that. Another example of innovation to come out of this conflict, and let's move on to other topics. Let's see what's happening. How are you, Francisco Tapatia? To everyone who is joining the community, thank you very much. We have to move on to a very serious situation that's happening over there. Alerts are already being issued in the United States, several countries, and here in Mexico. Let's see more. According to reports, a series of alerts are already being issued for the United States, for Mexico, for several countries, so that the information available on the topic of Ebola is taken into account. What's going on?
Well, alerts are already being issued in the United States. To begin with, there's already an important issue happening in the United States. The first real case has occurred, a confirmed case of Ebola, which is an American missionary who tested positive, and he is part of an American missionary organization. His name is Sergio, and he reports that Dr. Peter Stanford, a medical missionary in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, tested positive for the Bundingurio strain of Ebola after treating patients at the hospital. The organization told Sergio that 2 other missionaries who treated patients in the region, including Stanford's wife, are asymptomatic and are following quarantine protocols, while officials respond to Ebola outbreaks that continue to grow. Today, there is a higher number of deaths, with more than 100 people losing their lives, 116 to be exact, and 350 suspected cases. And obviously, this has already raised alarms in the United States, where people coming from certain African countries are now being denied entry. Is entry being restricted for travelers from countries where there may be Ebola outbreaks? In Central Africa, the country is going to suspend entry for 30 days for non-US citizens coming from these areas because of this outbreak, right? CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, announced this temporary suspension of entry into the country for anyone without a US passport who has traveled through the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, and South Sudan. Because now there are 3 countries. Today, Pepe was talking about the 3rd country, which is South Sudan, and about people who have been there in the last 21 days. If you were there in the last 21 days, you can't enter the United States if you are not American.
If you're American, you probably can, but they'll be taking precautions. The most serious thing of all is that the cases are increasing. There are already, as you said, 116. We're already discussing hundreds of suspected cases. Unfortunately, this one has a very high fatality rate. Another thing that stands out about the outbreak of this Ebola strain is that it has been affecting young people, particularly those between 20 and 39 years old. It's more than 60%. In fact, more than 60% are women and young people. That is mostly young people and women. That's something that stands out. The spread of this disease is happening in very large areas. We already saw in the first reports that there were cases 1,000 kilometers apart. There has been a lack of control. A group of Americans who were exposed to people who had Ebola. It's not known if they have it or not, but they were exposed from the United States.
Missionary.
There was a moment when they didn't even know where they were. And that's also a concerning issue.
Yes. Well, actually, right now, the missionary we mentioned at the beginning is already having his transfer to Germany arranged where he will receive treatment. And, well, 6 other people who are already under medical observation for this same issue will also be evacuated. They are Americans who were in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
The Mexican Ministry of Health issued a travel advisory due to the active Ebola outbreak. And the same is being done practically all over the world. They are being told not to travel to the Republic, or are being advised not to travel to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, not to travel to Uganda, although the problem is still considered to be at a low risk level, which is also very important to take into account. In other words, it's not an alert saying that, well, in Mexico it's already, well, no, it's an alert so that people don't travel, or if someone from there travels here, measures are being taken. Wound. The document states that there is international epidemiological surveillance due to the Ebola virus outbreak. Bundibugyo, which according to reports from the areas where it is transmitted, is an alert zone. Now, obviously at another level, carried out by the WHO, even with WHO surveillance in those areas, with supplies from the WHO and so on. Besides, well, as we already know, there are a series of challenges, internal conflicts, and even terrorist groups. They are attacking the area. I mean, it's obviously a tremendous problem. But the SSA, meaning Mexico's health ministry, they have said, well, that first of all, the infection is transmitted by direct contact with blood or secretions or objects contaminated with fluids. Or is it hard to get contaminated with this? Yes, it's also noted that quick identification and isolation for those with tough symptoms is key. It reduces the risk of transmission, and it also recommends that people who plan to go to South Africa, for example, look, this is being highlighted, or to countries already mentioned, like as we said, the Republic of the Congo, etc., that they should be careful, right? Yes, it's interesting they mentioned South Africa here, since I hadn't noticed any other country mentioned.
It's a very big country. There isn't much movement, not much traffic between the countries, surely. And well, you have to be careful about it, right?
It catches my attention because I feel like it's already too many kilometers from one to another. But well, that's the notice given by the Mexican Ministry of Health. It's important to mention that these measures being taken are basically preventive. And what they're looking for is simply to have information first. And in any case, to take measures for people who might make these trips. Here we follow up on all these kinds of situations. Above all, thinking about getting ahead and trying to understand this simply in time and making sure that things that aren't true aren't spread, said the Minister of Media Communication over there in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He explained that this situation has been spreading, it has been moving, it has already been distributed in Katanga, North Kivu, and Nyanyunde in Ituri. And here, well, this, even though we've already talked about it, since it's not very well known. For us, the Congo, just to let you know, the outbreak started in the northeast, but it's already in the south. It's already in Uganda, and it's already in South Sudan. I mean, where the outbreak started is where there are the most cases and from where it has spread to other countries. It hasn't spread to the south. Even though there have been cases in the south, it hasn't spread to the south. There have been few cases in the south. Most of them are in this area. Yes. And then one known case in Uganda and one case in Sudan from the south, which is also an issue so far. Let's say it hasn't spread too quickly in that sense. You can see that Ebola behaves very differently from other viruses or diseases. But what is concerning, and what the report mentioned a few months ago, is the fact that it's a very strong strain.
Yes, yes. What worries them the most is that, right? That there is neither a vaccine nor a treatment. So since they can't control it, they don't want it to get out of control.
Exactly. So let's move on to other matters. In the meantime, the following comments from Donald Trump are drawing attention. Let's go to that topic, and to the community that's joining, please give us a like, share. Huge thanks to everyone watching us on replay. Thank you so much for that, Raul Tapatia, Mauro. To the whole community, Sebastian, how have you been? Let's move on to other important matters as well. Let's go. Check out what Donald Trump says.
Let's hear him out. Countries told me they were planning a major attack tomorrow. I put it off for a little while, hopefully maybe forever, but possibly for a little while, because we've had very big discussions with Iran.
Well, he claims that he has had big discussions with Iran. You call that a discussion? It's a war, not a discussion. And he says basically that he's going to back off, that he's going to chicken out, and that he's going to step back, that he's not going to take action anymore. This is supposedly because they're already entering negotiations with Iran.
Well, we don't know this for sure. But anyway, according to this, he said today that he canceled the attacks that were supposedly going to happen tomorrow, Tuesday, because, well, he spoke with the leaders of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates and decided to make a decision. Let's say, to stop things, to halt the attack, to pause in order to move forward with the peace agreements with Tehran. Today, by the way, Masoud Pezeshkian also spoke about the same topic. Talked about this. But anyway, what Trump said was the following. The Emir of Qatar, also bin Hamad al-Al-Tanani, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and the President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Jabed, he says, they have asked me to postpone our planned military attack against the Islamic Republic of Iran, scheduled for tomorrow, since serious negotiations are taking place. In my opinion, as great leaders and allies, an agreement will be reached that will be very acceptable to the United States of America, as well as to all the countries of the Middle East and beyond. Well, he claims that, well, it was thanks to the Gulf countries that this pause is happening, because he basically already had his finger on the red button.
There are reports that what has happened is that the Iranians have been perfecting their air attacks. And there are fears that the next phase of the war will be very different. In other words, they fear that Iran has learned from this process and that the next operation will be much tougher. So in response to this, they're also trying to move everything toward diplomacy. Yes. But up until now, not only has Iran not given in on any of its points, but on the contrary, it already has control of the Strait of Hormuz. We've already presented who the authorities of the Strait of Hormuz are, and they are the authorities. Basically, they are the ones who will be collecting. So this could be seen as a capitulation by the United States. It's like watching the United States surrender, which will face heavy criticism because people will ask what was gained or lost. They'll claim victory. Well, that the supreme leader was eliminated. Okay, and what does that change? Because there's another supreme leader who's actually his son and who's even more intense than his own father. Okay, it was destroyed. The launchers. Now it's known that only 25% was destroyed. All the others are operational. And now they know they have power. I mean, now we see that they've discovered they have certain capabilities. Well, before they weren't so sure. Before, it just seemed more like a bluff, right? But now they're seeing different things. I find this attitude very strange. But in the end, when you look at the price of oil, obviously you say, hey, it's not going down. It's staying steady at $112 right now. It's extremely high. And because of this, the international pressure is tremendous. The truth is that on one hand, it's good that things are calming down in terms of the global economy, in terms of fertilizers worldwide. I mean, the consequences of this war would be disastrous, a tragedy for so many people. Millions of people would be affected on a global level. I mean, the Iran effect, let's call it that now. because that's their effect. I mean, in the end, they knew how to use an effect that creates such a huge global problem. In the end, who feels the pressure? The United States, since they're firing. Eventually, they have no choice but to withdraw, right? To negotiate and say, well, let's reach an agreement. Honestly, up until now, there hasn't been a single occasion where there's been a sign. The only thing is, as you said, it turned out to be more of a setback than anything else. I imagine that if there's an agreement, at least the most diplomatic one would come out and say things like, well, let's talk. The Iranian president, who we know is not the one who holds the power in the country, defended dialogue with the United States. He says and declares that, well, there is a willingness to talk between both countries, and that willingness will continue. So it's possible that the Revolutionary Guard might consider and say, you know what, it's convenient to talk. They won't give up the Strait of Hormuz anymore. They'll try to keep control of it. And if that happens, well, in terms of losses and gains, it would be seen as a loss, because in the end, they would already be taking control, let's say indirectly about 20% of the world's oil. I mean, that's what it would be. And also gas and other things. I mean, that would really be very bad news for the Gulf countries. Unless there's a negotiation and they also pull back. If that happens, at least, let's say we could say they reached some kind of balance, right? I mean, I don't know if it's exactly a tie, if you want to call it that. But in the end, they don't really lose or win, because the Strait of Hormuz, in the end, if things stay like this, it's like suddenly having a lot more power over other countries. Like, look, the United Arab Emirates and all that, another sign that can make you think twice about gains. So in the end today, they sent, well, between yesterday and today, right, they sent more troops to Saudi Arabia, as if sending a signal like that, Pakistan. Today, well, between yesterday and today, they sent more troops to Saudi Arabia, as if sending a signal that they were going to support Saudi Arabia. Although we know that Pakistan is playing a triple game with China, with Iran, and with the United States. They're playing, and everyone, they tell them if that happens, you would have more. And with the United States, they're playing everything. They tell them no, but they lose track. They tell them when, right?
Exactly. Well, Masoud Pezeshkian, by the way, he says that dialogue does not mean surrender. Because we remember that the hardline faction, which is the Revolutionary Guard Corps, doesn't even want to talk. They want to go straight in and fight, end everything, and see who is left standing, right? Basically, but Masoud Pezeshkian keeps asking for dialogue, saying it's something honorable, that it gives you authority, and that the goal is to preserve the nation's rights. Because Masoud Pezeshkian is very concerned about the country's economy. He has repeatedly said it can't last much longer. And well, unfortunately, he's someone who honestly doesn't have the necessary power to reach an agreement.
No, he doesn't have it. In any case, whatever is discussed with him, he's just like a messenger. He tells his bosses, hey, the United States says this, are you okay with it? And that's basically it. And that's an excellent question from Isai Barra. What does Pepe say at this point? Are we rooting for Trump? No, not at any point, not at all. Not during his first term or even his first year. Can he be believed? Thank you. No, neither of them. Iran, neither. Definitely not. But as for Trump, I mean, it's very clear he can't be trusted. I mean, in any case, he's still the president. And, well, for us, in our case, well, it's appropriate to show the information about what they say, about what Masoud Pezeshkian says, for example. What can we believe from Masoud Pezeshkian? I mean, he might even be telling the truth that he wants to have a dialogue, but it doesn't matter what he says because he doesn't have the power. And in Trump's case, obviously what he says always has 2 or 3 ways to interpret it. One way is that maybe he wants to negotiate because the Pentagon is now discovering the capabilities. In the last few weeks the war started, and let's say the first days were very successful for the United States. Following days started to change, and then things started to turn around, as we say here, and suddenly things weren't so successful anymore. Problems started to happen with some planes, like one crashed, or it got shot at, or now they're attacking a bunch of Gulf countries. We have to remember that there was an attempt to attack and even damage a nuclear facility in Israel. So we're going to start operating in a different way, and the assessment, based on what's being reported now about infiltrations carried out by the US military, is that this is the move. The war calculations, they say, well, the Iranians are learning quickly from the conflict, and this could be a risk. So it's not necessary to continue the war. I mean, what do you gain or lose? Well, no, you don't really gain that much, and you could lose a lot. So don't keep going. And that's the end of it. And here the narratives will be about whether they negotiated. Whether they were pressured, the narratives are one thing. Reality is very different. Well, then that's a very good question because, well, it's true, right? I mean, honestly, at this point, it's hard to believe politicians in general, not just Trump. That's why you always have to be thinking, why do they want to say this? What's the motivation? Exactly. And the other thing could be, and that depends on the facts, that maybe they're thinking about attacking because they've already done it several times. Trump, when it seems like he's going to negotiate the most, that's when he attacks. In fact, he's done it several times, many times. So sometimes it seems like he's negotiating, it seems like he's reaching out, and then suddenly he's not. So you just don't know. Honestly, it's hard to know what the next step will be. Basically, it's going to be whatever he thinks is most convenient, mainly for his own interests, and especially for the midterm elections. Hey, so look, let's go to the map here. There are a series of reports expected in the next few hours about some very severe storms. A few moments ago, we had some pretty intense thunderstorms here at times and in certain areas of the Monterrey metropolitan area. But an alert has been issued in which, well, a series of phenomena are expected that could affect up to 13 million people in the United States. Obviously, you also have to add the possible impacts Mexico could also face. If we look at it from the point of view of thunderstorms, which we've already been seeing, the line of storms, they say, is historic. I mean, because of its size, the way it's behaving. And look, here we don't get to see yesterday's or today's, but the one that's coming for tomorrow, May 19th, which covers from Mexico, the south of Mexico, and already towards Oaxaca, all the way up to practically Canada. Yes. I mean, it's a line of storms. You can see it very clearly here. It's a very wide line of storms where the storm is basically hitting the Midwest and part of the eastern United States. They estimate that tens of millions of people are at risk. 13 states, including Michigan, Illinois, Kansas, and Nebraska, have already issued alerts. We've been warning about this for days now, and we've been talking about it, what the effects have been so far. It is expected that between 40 and 50 tornadoes will form just from today to tomorrow. This could happen in a matter of hours, especially in the afternoons, which is when the conditions are most favorable. Cities like Chicago, Kansas City, and Minneapolis are in the impact zone, with the possibility of massive blackouts. The winds can obviously exceed 120 kilometers per hour. And they're capable of ripping off roofs, destroying structures, and leaving cities and communities cut off for a while. So this is intensifying. The hurricane season is just beginning. It's only been a few days. The winds we've already been seeing are also starting to cause trees to fall and power outages that have been reported. And that's what we're doing here. We're keeping you updated. That's what this channel is about, right? To keep you updated right now, just so you know at this moment or now, right? To be more precise, the following number of power outages is being reported. 208,000 homes, okay? That are currently experiencing a power outage in the United States. It's 208,000, including homes, businesses, and offices, right? 208,000 homes without power, mostly in Michigan. That's the majority. A quarter of all the outages are in Michigan, but also in Kansas City, almost tied, and then it follows after that. Missouri, Ohio, Indiana, California, Wyoming, and even New Mexico also have small outages, but not as many, not as big. What stands out is that there are 51,449 homes without electricity right now. If you add up how many people live in a house, I don't know, 3, 4 people, that's about 200,000 people without power right now. Over there in Michigan, And well, it's about the same in Kansas. So that's quite a lot of people. And then you have Missouri, Ohio, and so on. So adding it all up, they estimate a little over 1 million people who are without power. Obviously, it's a worrying issue right now for the United States, isn't it? With the heavy rains, they say they're representing a risk of sudden flooding because these are torrential rains, rains that the ground can't absorb quickly enough. This phenomenon is also causing and generating tornadoes because there's a clash of cold air coming from the north with heat coming from the Gulf, and that clash is creating conditions, they say, ideal for supercells, which, according to the report, are extremely dangerous. Supercells are destructive storms capable of producing hail the size of baseballs. And tornadoes, as we know, not just the classic tornadoes, are also generated under these conditions. Experts from the US Weather Service say that this will continue until tomorrow. And maybe the day after tomorrow, by Wednesday, the chances will decrease a lot. But still tomorrow. This is what we're seeing there, right? So please take this matter into account and, well, you can let me know how things are going. It's a region known as the, what's it called? The Tornado Corridor or the Tornado Alley. Suddenly it's changed location. It's shifted a little bit. Yeah, but look how strange this is. Look where the storms are, right in the alley. I mean, this alley is exactly the, what's it called? Tornado Alley that goes from Texas all the way up to practically Illinois, right? This whole area, basically the Great Lakes states, right? This whole area is that corridor where there are 400 tornadoes every year. But just imagine, that's 400 tornadoes annually. But right now, this storm, just in these 2 days or so, is estimated to have formed about 40 to 50 tornadoes. That's about a quarter of the tornadoes for the whole year. It happens in just 2 days, practically. That's why they call this, according to them, a historic storm, right? That's why this case is so relevant. And obviously in Mexico, especially in the Northeast, we have to be careful not to let our guard down because it's not an area with as many tornadoes as in the United States. Yes, there aren't as many planes, although there are, especially in Coahuila, right? Exactly. And the northern part, Coahuila, the more central southern part of Coahuila, is already a bit more mountainous. But that part can have plains and tornadoes can form there, or a tornado can be more intense there. The difference is also that here in Mexico, buildings are made with concrete, with heavy materials. And tornadoes, well, they can hurt you, obviously, but not as much. They don't knock your house down. It would be very difficult if there's a little shack, if there's a small house made of sheet metal or something like that, in areas that are very impoverished. It could be, obviously, in those cases, it will affect them. But in general, most buildings are usually made with solid construction. So we don't see that kind of thing. The disaster is different. Of course, it can cause blackouts, fallen trees, incidents like that. Either way, don't trust hail because it's still a stone falling from the sky. Basically, that's what it is. So it's obviously a risky situation, right? And besides, it forms suddenly. That's the problem. Or that, unlike a hurricane or unlike other phenomena that you can see ahead of time, there's time. But a tornado doesn't give you much time. From the moment it forms to when it's already causing damage, it's fast, right? Same thing. A storm, a supercell, and this is very sudden. Suddenly the supercell is already there, right on top of you.
Not exactly.
Well, then let's move on to other matters, other important news as well. Hey, this image is being reported. It's been circulating on social media and in various outlets. This is the moment when Israeli Navy commandos reportedly seized a ship that was heading toward Gaza. What is known about this situation? How are things going?
You can see that there are many boats with people who intend to reach Gaza and activists who want to arrive and help. Well, they've all been stopped. And this is another case like that. The boat is called Vinkovolo, and well, it was stopped as it was leaving Cyprus when this detention happened. It's just another incident among many that have happened. At first it was news, but now there have been so many, and they stop all of them. So what now?
I mean, they stop all of them.
So they stop all of them. Well, recently they detained one who was an activist. I think he was Spanish, and well, they kept him detained for quite a while, and it drew a lot of attention. This is because usually they send them back the next day, but not this person. And well, it was a bit worrying because they started saying that maybe he had ties to Hamas, and watch out, right? Because when they say something like that, maybe they want to keep you detained longer.
Exactly. Well, look, that's how things are right now over there in Israel and in the Mediterranean, which is where they make the arrests. I mean,
They always leave from Cyprus.
exactly. I mean, many come from Europe, from other places, and then they arrive in Cyprus. And from Cyprus, they head to Gaza, right? Which is this area, this little piece, more or less from here to here. They usually try to bring aid, and well, most of the time they are stopped by the Israel Defense Forces.
Exactly. Well, they have already stopped 39 out of more than 50 boats that have been intercepted. And obviously, there is a reaction from the president of Turkey, who doesn't hold back at any moment. Yes. Described Israel's actions as piracy and banditry and said that the Israeli government's mentality is fascist.
Well, strong statements from Erdogan, who has been increasingly intense in his opinions about Netanyahu and about Israel. It's a topic that also draws a lot of attention. In fact, he has even issued warnings, saying that if it comes to that, no one should be tempted. He says that if anyone tries to attack the Turks, they claim that they are not Lebanon or Iran, that they have real strength, real power, not something you can ignore. That also draws attention at this moment. Let's move on to other important matters as well. Something else from the Lebanon-Israel area, that whole region. This one, yes.
No, yes. An interesting fact about the people who were detained. The sister of the Irish president, Catherine Connor, was among them. She is one of the 8 Irish citizens who were on one of these ships.
Shit. Okay, there was, yes. This is really, really crazy. Honestly, it also stands out among what's been done there. What we've been observing is that, well, those operations are almost always sailboats. You see, yes, they're almost always smaller boats, small boats, they're sailboats, and they carry medicine and food and that kind of stuff. Obviously, what the Israelis themselves say they fear is that they might be carrying weapons or other things, but usually that kind of stuff, that kind of ammunition or weapons, usually comes from Iran. But anyway, in the end, that's the attitude Israel has in this regard, and it's obviously been heavily criticized for quite some time. Now, notice that there's some movement. You can see Vladimir Putin arriving there. That's archive footage, right? But this one is going to happen tomorrow. I mean, you can see him there. I mean, is it a visit or is it archive footage where Xi Jinping and Putin meet? But more than just the archive footage, we're showing it because Putin's visit to Xi Jinping is about to happen tomorrow, May 19th. But it's a very important visit because in the end, what's at stake there is trust, which, well, is always fragile. Especially considering that without clear support from China, Russia could end up very isolated from the world. Now, yes, completely isolated. And, well, that's the thing. Right now, while things are still uncertain, Vladimir Putin is conducting military exercises, even moving nuclear weapons to carry out drills with Belarus. Russia and Belarus are conducting military exercises using nuclear weapons. It's a topic that's, well, the typical old reliable move. As they say, they always bring out these kinds of weapons for a spin to show them off when they feel weakened or threatened.
We have to remember that a few months ago, Russia deployed its nuclear weapons in Belarus, a topic that caused a lot of fear, a lot of comments from NATO. And well, the Minister of Defense of Belarus confirmed that today, Monday, they started drills in which missile units and warplanes participated. The comment is as follows. During the exercise, in cooperation with the Russian side, it is planned to practice the delivery of nuclear munitions and their preparation for use. This has obviously attracted attention. The ministry did not say that the maneuvers are not directed against any third country, because usually this drill is always done, right? This kind of simulation involving a third country. This wasn't even mentioned, but well, it's part of the exercises that, as it says in some parts, are meant to generate. Yes, obviously, they also have to prepare to use these weapons, but a lot of it is a narrative of we have power, right?
And well, every now and then, you see these kinds of weapons come out, right? Normally, that's how it is. When there's either a strong attack from Ukraine or when there's some kind of strong comment from NATO, I mean, it's an increasing. They don't even get distracted, right? They're very concerned about what people say, but mainly about external opinions, since everything is already censored internally. So there's little that can be done. No, I don't know what to do. But it's outside, right? Like they're really worried about comments on geopolitical weakness. They're really worried. But this has also created an increasingly visible internal weakness for them. So then what's the benefit there, right? Of operating and spending resources and weapons and making very threatening moves, if you want, showing strength and even pushing China away from them, or at least trying to. China is in a very complicated situation right now because, well, just like in many parts of the world, there's an energy crisis right now, which is leading to an even greater drop in consumption. We'll discuss this soon. What happens in Mexico is very similar to events. I mean, there's a decrease in consumption that's now confirmed because, well, that was the feeling we were getting, right? People who have their own businesses were telling us that, and you all were mentioning it here too. Hey, they're just struggling to sell. Exactly. I mean, there are a few people buying. I mean, not so much food because people have to. I mean, it's more like little restaurants maybe, or hardware stores. I mean, other things that maybe you say, well, I won't buy it. I mean, maybe it's not urgent for me. Exactly. I want to paint here. I want to do this, but it's not urgent. So I keep putting it off to the next month or the next month. And when you do that on a large scale, suddenly there are people who say, I'm not getting anything at all, just enough to survive, right? Just to keep the business going. So that collapse starts to be seen in China, and it starts to be seen in other important regions too. Right? And that's also worrisome, obviously.
So also, hey, since we're on the topic of Russia, today it was reported that Russian air defense accidentally shot down one of its own helicopters. This happened while they were trying to intercept Ukrainian drones, and the system shot down one of their own helicopters that was doing exactly the same thing, trying to destroy 2 drones, and unfortunately the entire crew lost their lives. This was something that was reported by a Russian military correspondent. They are the ones who released this information. They don't give many details, obviously, but they are the ones who provide this information. The government hasn't said anything. And also today, Donald Trump extends. Do you remember that? I mean, almost when the war with Iran started, he issued a permit so people could buy gasoline from Russia. And well, today he extended this permit for 30 more days. So people can buy Russian crude. That's at sea. It has to be at sea. It's an important point because of the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, and it seems that it's to help countries that are going through a crisis. And, well, they're giving them a chance to keep buying from Russia, which, well, has very cheap oil, right? This was also a topic that was criticized when it was first criticized by the European Union. Because how can they be giving money to Russia, which uses it for the war?
I mean, well, so how do you think the new relationship between Putin and Xi Jinping will be, assuming that's the case? I mean, that the relationship cools off. What message are we going to see tomorrow from Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin? I mean, will it be a very warm, affectionate message like, you're the best as always? Or are we going to see something more institutional, maybe more formal? So cold? Like he's my buddy, but we're not the same, right?
Generally, Xi Jinping doesn't, as they say here, make careless moves, you know? He never gives in. He doesn't sell out to the highest bidder. He's never done that. Several times, Vladimir Putin has literally gone to him with some proposal, wanting Xi to say yes to him, like this gas oil project, a gas pipeline that should go from Russia through China, and China says no, right? It's called the Trans-Siberian or the Siberian, something like that.
Well, it's a huge project that doesn't
Has been done yet.
To this day, every time they meet, he shows up with that project, trying to convince him, prepares a speech, but still fails. It's a topic that really interests me. Well, definitely, Xi Jinping can't be manipulated. He knows what he wants, and Donald Trump can go, Vladimir Putin can go, they can offer him the sun, the moon, and the stars. But he won't give in because he knows very clearly what he wants for China.
And look, since you mentioned that, there's a message that Donald Trump sends about Xi Jinping that catches my attention. It's not this message. Let's listen to it, and then you can tell me your opinion. Do you think that Donald Trump has already, let's say, bowed his head to Xi Jinping and is now taking orders from the Chinese president? Or is he making his own moves? What do you think? Go ahead. Leave me your comments, your opinions. Look, here's what it says next.
Our military is the greatest military anywhere in the world. I just left China, and I will say President Xi was very, very complimentary of our military. He was actually amazed at our military. We have the greatest military in the world. We're not going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. So our military is the greatest military.
Well, the message is repeated there. That is, Donald Trump says that his army is the greatest in the world, or the coolest, the strongest, whatever. But
Who is super
surprised that Xi Jinping was supposedly giving them positive comments, like saying, wow, yes,
not wow. I was spying. They're fine.
they're well groomed. I noticed they have this, this, and this.
I don't have the list here.
But the point is that he was shocked, he says, by the US armed forces. Just imagine, can you picture someone telling Xi Jinping or Donald Trump, wow, your army is impressive? No, obviously not. No. But well, that's him. It's a message that's more like, what is Trump doing? Because everything is just so obvious in that sense. Trump always tries to convince you of some narrative, right? That's what he does. And if not, he does very obvious, very funny things, because that's what he says. He says a doctor told him he has the best health in the world. That's classic. Then when the doctor said that, he always says he always gives names. Well, no, he doesn't give names. He just says it. He says it's like when he suddenly says an engineer invented a time machine. Which engineer said that? Especially if you're going to give some information, and it's always information that benefits you, right? Because it's always positive for him, isn't it? So now he wants to convince people that Xi Jinping admires the army. Honestly, that's just not true. No, the point here is, why is he going? Because he wants to convince the American public that Xi Jinping is cool with the army. What he wants is to change the narrative now and say, look, now, after I told you they were the bad guys, now they're the good guys. Not just because we're simply going to do business and that's it. The problem is over. So even when Biden had just met with him, Biden was already calling him a dictator and and even then, he wasn't wrong. He said what was true, right? No, he didn't say anything that wasn't true either. But obviously, China's reaction was like, they were clearly upset. Biden was there commenting, speaking very softly, but it was actually more intense. When it comes to making comments, and we have to remember that he never visited Xi Jinping in China. Now, I don't know if it was because he wasn't invited or simply because they didn't like him, but with Trump, things are different, and he actually focuses on business with China. That's also a pretty big topic, right? So, well, let's move on to other matters that I think are among the most relevant of all, my friend. Let's go to the next one. Look, what was expected was a global food crisis. And that's what Cooper has reported and is warning about, that there is a global crisis, right? This is what I'm going to tell you about. We've been saying this for a while now, that we felt the problem with the Bering Strait was heading in that direction. And not because we're saying it just because it occurred to us, but because we saw different reports, from Africa, from Asian countries, from different areas, right? And they said a global food crisis is coming that will affect millions of people. Some things, even without exaggerating and being serious, it's getting a little out of hand. That's how big the problem is going to be. But as things kept happening, and as we saw oil prices keep rising, and this didn't stop, and it still hasn't stopped, that could be another reason to end the conflict, even if it means losses for the United States. The British foreign minister, we're not talking about Somalia here, right? The British official says it's necessary to apply urgent pressure to reopen it. This is no longer sustainable. But that's not because of energy. It's not about the energy, it's the fertilizers. The problem with fertilizers is, look, we are living in maybe we don't notice it, but we're living in a golden age of food, right? How can that be? If there's hunger, yes. Unfortunately, sometimes there's an imbalance and there's hunger, yes. But what I mean is that globally, we've never produced as much food as we do now. There's too much food being produced. There are estimates that say between 3 and 5 planets could be perfectly fed with the amount of food that's being produced. I mean, we produce a lot and it's cheap. We produce cheaply, we produce a lot and cheaply. Yes, the problem is that things are manipulated so that it's not so cheap. And things are also manipulated so that it doesn't reach everyone, right? Because if not, then it's not as much of a business. So the thing is that a lot is produced. But why is so much produced? There are several factors, but mainly because of advances in human knowledge, technology, fertilizers, modern farming methods, genetics. Many things have been developed so that the food that used to give you 1 ear of corn now gives you 5 ears of corn, even with little water, even with too much heat or too much cold. We're managing to have ultra-resistant crops that can withstand almost anything. So there's a lot of progress, and pest outbreaks are contained quickly, and this and that. And the point is that it's produced and produced and produced, and that's what's produced. That part, that golden age that we saw in that sense, well, it's very good, but it's also fragile. So if one of the factors that has allowed us to have a planet so full of food fail, if one of those legs of the table falls, it becomes unbalanced and collapses. And you might create something that we haven't seen in our lifetime, right? At least most humans right now, at least here in Latin America, luckily we live on a great continent, honestly, all of America, because it's a very productive continent. And it has a very, very, very strong culture of farming and agriculture. And that makes us like the horn of plenty for the planet, which could also be Africa, but it isn't. Why? Because of conflict. It's that simple, right? And because over there, just imagine each country has different languages, different religions, here what unites us is that we all speak the same language, that we have a lot of similarities in many things. In the end, here it really is the horn of plenty. In a good way. Honestly, I think we have incredible potential. But if a British minister from a country as resilient as Britain tells you to be careful about what's coming, this is a problem. It's a very serious impact that's coming. This is what Yvette Cooper says, and this statement seemed to me one of the most impactful because I insist, it's a first world country that's telling you this, and they're already seeing the problem even for themselves.
Exactly. What the minister and Yvette Cooper are saying is that if the planet is sleepwalking into a global food crisis, she says it only has weeks. We must act within weeks in regions such as Europe, the UK, and the US. Right now, they are already reporting problems in the agricultural sector because there aren't enough fertilizers, and food prices have become unaffordable because of the fertilizer, which has already affected millions of farmers. Farmers don't have access to it, or it's becoming very expensive for them. And it also says that if the supply isn't guaranteed now, the consequences will be seen during the next agricultural year. Now, the NGO, which is from the WHO, no, the NGO World Food Program, warns about a critical increase in food insecurity and about 45 million people could face extreme hunger.
Just imagine that. I mean, 5 Uruguays, right? I mean, 5 countries like Uruguay facing extreme hunger. I mean, that's the issue. That's 45 million. He says 45 minutes, 45 million. I mean, it's like, since there are 5 million people in Uruguay, over there in Uruguay, just imagine it would be like 10 times more, right? I mean, it's impressive. I mean, honestly, it's huge, right? I mean, it's like, I don't know, almost half the population of Mexico. So, I mean, it really is something very serious. And I'll leave you with that phrase that says, the world is sleepwalking into a global food crisis. Yeah. This warning will let it not be said that you didn't hear it, that you weren't told, that nobody warned us. No, the problem is right there. And these people aren't playing around with these little phrases. No, it doesn't make them more or less popular. Nobody listens to these little phrases. Nobody says, it's just to create fear. Who is this scaring? No one listens. People are watching soccer or busy with other things. They're not paying attention. Ask anyone, go ahead and tell them. Hey, do you know there's a global crisis? They have no idea what you're talking about. They don't know what's coming. I mean, they don't get it. They don't even know. I mean, no, none of that. I mean, that's why it's important from my perspective when it comes to the news, because you try to see, well, a little further ahead as something global and distant, where we likely won't visit those worlds in our life, but it's knocking on one of the doors and saying, here are the extremes, but it's knocking on one of the doors and saying, here is the problem, which, well, in the end, it creates. Well, war and Iran's strategy of saying, if I go down, I'll take everyone with me, right? I mean, that's their strategy. It's if I go down, I'll take everyone with me. And they're actually doing it. I mean, in that sense, yes, they're dragging everyone into it, and it's not such a direct effect. It's not like an explosive or a missile that hits a place. No, that's how it is. The missile is very easy to see, and you can say, look, it hit here or there. The missile is indirect. So since it takes a year for the effect to show, pues, well, a lot of people won't realize it until the problem is right in front of them, until it's affecting them. Well, there's already a rise in prices. We're already seeing that. That's already happening. The effect is already being felt, right? But one thing is, okay, wow, the price really went up. Well, you just have to pay more. But when, and I mean, what can you do? Either you eat less or whatever. But when you say, and then when there's no food, I mean, if there's no food, what's the strategy then? Yeah, because no.
It's not like it just happens overnight, right?
Well, there isn't.
There isn't a
Yes. So
month.
I sincerely hope they stop this. I mean, these kinds of people, like the United Kingdom's foreign secretary, or if it's the Secretary of Agriculture, or I don't know. I mean, those are the kinds of messages that suddenly, hopefully, will shake up the geopolitical world a bit and make them say, all right, that's enough of this already. You can't allow a country to say, because they attack me, I attack others. That's not acceptable. I mean, it's not right. And that's the calculation the United States made as well. The United States also has to be responsible for its own people. I mean, like saying, when I arrived, the strait was open. So let me keep it open, right? That's how it should start, shouldn't it? So what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario, be careful with this, because the worst case scenario is the United States threatens to go all out, but then doesn't follow through. If it's not calculated well enough, and it turns out that they go after those responsible and end up wiping out all the fertilizer production in the Gulf country, things could get even worse. Yes. So, I mean, I'm not saying that war is the solution. What I'm saying is that the solution has to happen now. I mean, no, it's not like it's whenever they want or whenever they decide to see what they're going to do. No. Much more pressure has to be applied to open the strait or negotiate, right? But the strait has to be opened urgently. I mean, not today. It should have been done a month ago, right? If not, the impact is severe.
I think with this one, that's already 2 wars, right? Where countries tend to underestimate the power of the country they're going to attack. I think that shouldn't happen anymore.
That shouldn't happen anymore because
we've already changed. We're in a different time now, and just having big weapons, even if they cost billions of dollars, doesn't mean anything anymore.
No, it doesn't really mean anything now. So it means that, well, you're going to look really cool in movies. They'll make for great movies. But in the reality of wars, especially with strategies, things change, and they change very quickly. Yes, look, today I'm moving on to other topics. Let's go there. Today, there's an announcement that goes almost unnoticed by most people, and here we're mentioning it to you as, well, it's important. But even at the time, I couldn't see the full scope of it. But now we've started thinking about it. We said, wait, but we're discussing what you just mentioned. The scale of wars now moves at a very fast pace. So the ability to adapt, I mean, you come in as a powerful country and you attack the other, but nothing more than the other. Now that's no longer the case. I mean, as soon as it starts to process and prepare to defend itself, before it could take decades, and that's when the other would take advantage, invade you and defeat you. Yes, yes, yes. Now progress is so fast, and the way countries adapt is so quick, because now it's very easy for a country. If before you arrived in a country to invade and there wasn't, I mean, they weren't necessarily going to have engineers. I mean, they weren't going to have that kind of university trained brain power. They have the ability to say, let's invent something that can defeat the other, right? But that's it. Now that's changed. Right now, any developing country that has good universities and all that can tear you apart. Because in just a few years, in Ukraine's case, how many military companies have emerged? But now they're announcing an aerial bomb. This is their first aerial bomb created by the Ukrainians, who managed to develop that technology in 17 months, when even in powerful countries, it takes years, even decades, to build a bomb of that kind. So it was developed way too quickly. Why? Because knowledge also accelerated with ideas, with espionage, with top-level engineers, and with business. In the end, if this is going to be a business and you have strong investments, you have minds that really know the subject, and you have an urgent need, because with needs, with urgent need, and with a smart person or a lot of smart people, you develop whatever you need because it's urgent, you need it now. So you go and convince people and you go and do this and that and put everything together. And soon you already have a weapon that's competing against the best in the world. We're discussing countries that have invested billions over a long time. But this happened in a short period.
The country's aerial bomb, which, as PP says, took 17 months to complete all the development and everything. And it's obviously a very important breakthrough for Ukraine, because part of it would be for long-distance attacks. This warhead weighs 250 kilos, and Fedorov said on his X account that that this type of explosive has a unique design created specifically for the reality of modern warfare. Among its features is its ability to destroy fortifications, command posts, and other targets dozens of kilometers behind the front line. Ukrainian pilots are also already conducting combat readiness tests and carrying out the first adaptations to this aerial bomb. And well, it is being reported that this Ukrainian bomb will soon begin to strike enemy targets.
Look, there we can see it, right? I mean, that's the test, let's say, that they are showing of this bomb. In the end, now, I mean, looking at ourselves, right? Well, and as well, now as a citizen of a country, also here in Latin America, where we usually are not very inclined toward war. And this, I mean, it also makes me think about something else, you know? I mean, I have to say, this is really interesting. Honestly, quite surprising. There are no small countries anymore, right? So those countries don't exist anymore. The ones you could just wipe out just because you're, all right, if we could just meet that need, right? If we could achieve that. Let's say this need, let's say for a war, imagine if we started to have other needs, maybe for the sake of global well-being. I mean, if we said, let's urgently develop ourselves, which is also necessary to really improve the whole planet. But for real, right? I mean, let's create and bring together the best minds for that. The thing is, we could also achieve a lot that way, right? Surely. Hey, I'm noticing And this is a bit of a side note, right? I'm noticing that suddenly maybe, well, this many are new or maybe don't understand the channel's dynamic and all that. And then they ask me how they can help or things like that. It's very easy. I mean, by liking, sharing, hyping, all that helps the channel a lot. Now, if you want to support the channel even more or something like that, well, if you want to support the channel even more and go a little further, you can support us with a tip, a super chat, with donations. All those ways are possible too, right? But that's all from me. Just so you know, that's one way. Even just being here, watching us on TV, that's something we're truly grateful for. Now let's move on to another topic, another important topic. We were telling you that in Mexico, and well, it's actually worldwide, honestly. But let's say the report from Mexico comes out. And I want to talk about this situation because there's a problem with consumer spending, right? This is reported by El Economista, right?
El Economista reports today that private consumption in Mexico, meaning by individuals, has been declining for 4 consecutive months. This obviously reflects that there is a crisis when it comes to buying things and food inflation. For example, just as proof, we have tomatoes, as we've talked about here, which have gone up in price, and the slowdown in the labor market, as well as the uncertainty about how the economy will continue, not just at the national level, but also internationally. It's a topic that causes a lot of anxiety, and according to BBVA research, household spending fell by 0.4% monthly, with a decline in food as well. Foods that are consumed every day, health, hotels, and restaurants. Spending on services has dropped by 0.5%. Specialists warn that families are currently prioritizing essential expenses, such as food, clothing, and education, and postponing purchases. Faced with this, we don't know what will happen tomorrow with rising oil prices and the dollar. For example, in the case of remittances, they're just not going as far, right? Because remittances aren't really helping much right now.
No, I mean, why have remittances decreased?
Number one, it's much harder for people to be in the United States. Now, so
A lot more. What are they going to send?
Otherwise, they can't even get by, right?
Exactly.
So, and now they go less far here, then
And what comes in doesn't go as far, right? Besides, that's the problem with a strong peso. I mean, when the remittance gets to the family, they get less, right? So is it too strong? And suddenly, yeah, I mean, it's great on one hand that the peso isn't weak either, but sometimes too much strength is also a problem.
yes, the president said a strong peso doesn't always mean the economy is doing well. Yes, a few months ago, exactly. But the experts say that maybe the upcoming World Cup, which is just a few months away or even less. Yes, about a month or so. Well, it's going to give a temporary boost to consumption in June and July. I mean, yes, because people from abroad are coming. They're going to spend money in restaurants, etc., services. But, it doesn't mean that things are going to improve or that there will be real improvement.
Like what? Mexico City, Guadalajara? No, not just Mexico City, Guadalajara, or Monterrey. What is going to get better for you in Tijuana? Nothing. What will improve for you in Piedras Negras, Coahuila? Nothing. It's not the same. Nothing will change in that way. Maybe just the little bars and such, right? Okay. People get together there to have a beer on game day, but other than that, I can't imagine. I mean, what else? It's not like the hotels in Monclova or Cancun are going to fill up because of that, right? I mean, no, it has a positive effect, but it's temporary and mostly just in the host cities.
Very low.
So, yeah, actually, you can tell. I mean, there are a lot of people working on this right now. A lot of people. I mean, that's great. But what are people going to do when the World Cup is over? I mean, because there's a lot going on right now in the 3 cities. And I wonder what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, that's how it almost always is. Actually, look at the stories of Los Monteles. They have an economic peak and then a drop or a decline, let's say. And unfortunately, with the way global acceleration is happening, well, that's a problem, right? I mean, we're lucky here to have oil. That's definitely a relief, because if you don't have it, it's even worse, right? Because you have to look for it elsewhere when the price keeps going up and up and up. That's also obviously a problem. Yes, but anyway, let's move on to other topics. Let's go.
Well, today there were meetings between the government and a special envoy from the United States to the island. His name was Jeff Landry, and there was a discussion about the issue of autonomy. Right now I'm going to talk to you about Greenland.
About Greenland. You didn't say Greenland, did you?
You said Greenland? Sorry, Greenland, the government of Greenland. So the president, who knows what happened in that meeting, but the president, well, after the meeting, he said he hoped there would be mutual respect from the United States. And obviously they were being respectful, so they expected respect. Back after a job that was gone, well, talking for several months, and the same things that were said from the beginning have been repeated. That we are looking for good cooperation based on mutual respect, and that we must respect the task of the working group between the United States, Denmark, and Greenland. This was said by the president of Greenland's autonomous government, Jens Frederik Nielsen. Well, he says that the United States' position on the territory hasn't changed. I mean, they're just like Iran. They're stubborn and want Greenland, even though, well, supposedly, I remember that we talked about this over the weekend, that the meeting was to set up more bases.
Oh, well.
But apparently, the topic of the United States wanting the territory of Greenland didn't come up again. Well,
This has indeed brought about distrust from both Europe and the United States, and they're speeding it up again. What does this mean? That the United States, specifically Trump, wants to be distant from Europe. I mean, he intentionally wants to be as far away from Europe as possible. In fact, I would even dare to say that in his calculations, he wants to be at odds with Europe. So, what is he seeing? What did Putin tell him, right? What did Putin tell him he's going to do with Europe? Like to say, run, because I don't like what's happening here, right? I mean, I don't know. Honestly, this directly affects NATO. I mean, NATO has to defend Greenland, right? But how? I mean, how is it going to defend Greenland? From an attack by another NATO country, right? So this idea seemed set aside, as if they wouldn't mess around with that stuff anymore. Because they are. I mean, it seems like nonsense, even among the Republicans themselves. But now it's being brought up again, and that...
exactly, this topic is being brought up again. And well, they say that they had already made the red line very clear, that Greenland is not for sale.
Well, that's the issue. Maybe one of the most anticipated moves was what was going to happen with this problem, with this lawsuit that Elon Musk filed against OpenAI, because the big players are involved, right? So are you talking about Grok against OpenAI? By the way, Elon Musk had invested in it, and then I don't know what happened. I mean, the big players are fighting because new companies are just emerging, and they're the ones that are going to dominate the market, even worldwide. Let's say there are the Chinese and American companies. Basically, that's where the real fight is. Currently, none have stood out enough to attract attention from other countries. So, what happened?
With him,
First, for those not very aware of the situation,
Elon Musk, as Pepe mentioned, at some point was an investor in the whole OpenAI thing. Because, well, the idea was that OpenAI, which is what we know as ChatGPT, was going to be an open system. I mean, it wasn't going to be for profit. And then there was a change over time. There was a change. It became for profit. If you want the pro system, well, you have to pay, right? And the prices keep going up. And of course, there's a free version. But, well, let's say that Elon Musk didn't like this. He didn't like that it became something people had to pay for, right? And, well, that's why he filed the lawsuit. The jury in the United States has just ruled against Elon Musk, okay, in his lawsuit against OpenAI. They say the decision is because Musk filed the lawsuit too late, which invalidates his claims, key points for legal matters. So there is a statute of limitations, meaning there is a time frame in which you can file this kind of lawsuit. But he waited way too long because, yes, this issue has been around since 2022, right? I mean, several years have already passed and he was suing. He sued OpenAI for $134 billion. And he also wanted Sam Altman to be removed, who, well, is the CEO of OpenAI and who was already fired once. He was gone just a week before they brought him back. They couldn't be without him. Well, the jury also rejected the accusation related to the alleged misuse of the charitable foundation linked to the case. The resolution protects not only OpenAI, but also key figures like Greg Brockman and the partner, the one who is Microsoft's technology partner. Because after this one leaves, Elon Musk comes in. Yes, Microsoft stepped in. And well, it protects OpenAI. It just protects this investor. And the judge immediately ratified the verdict. The doors were closed, and Mr. Musk, go work on the other things you love doing, right?
Because, well, the fight there was a good one. So let's see what happens, right? Because, well, at least for now, OpenAI's focus was, or had been, right? Was it going to be non-profit or not-for-profit? And now, well, the operations have shifted to business. And also, during all this time, with this whole lawsuit, Chinese AIs have appeared, and so has the cloud, among others. So now the competition is going in a different direction. Honestly, I mean, those who use those AIs, let us know which ones are your favorites. That's how they've used them. But with the friends or acquaintances I have who are using them, there's no consensus there. I mean, some prefer Claude, others prefer Grok, others prefer OpenAI. So honestly, it's pretty varied. And that also catches my attention because when social networks first appeared, it was like, well, you know, if you want a short message, then Twitter. If you want a family photo, then Facebook. If you want, a video, then YouTube, and so on. It was very clear what each one offered. And with AI, it's all-out competition, right? So, I mean, they all want to offer everything, images, video, programming. You know, they want to help a little with everything in theory. And so far, it's not really like that. I mean, if suddenly one stands out in images, then the other catches up. Then the other one matches it. And then the other improves and catches up again. And that's how it goes. I mean, that's how it's been constantly. And hey, no, don't let famous people appear in AI images. No, that's not allowed. And one does it. And the others, the next day, are already doing the same thing too. And the good thing is, but I have a 3-second video, right? Well, I already know I made the 5-second one realistic. And that's how they go on. They don't realize that they're competing tremendously.
And suddenly they get into trouble, like in the case. But then they took down the video because, well, it was already too late. It wasn't sustainable anymore. It wasn't sustainable because that's also the problem that suddenly happens.
Right. Let's move on to other topics. Let's go. Well then, hey, so here we have this special guest. What's his name? Because Jack Drake has arrived. Since he brings... Sorry. Pepe, mucho gusto, Jack.
No, now you can say I'm new here.
But, well, it's a different time now, but he's already watching other content. He's already watching other things at other levels, right? Anyway, I send my regards to Jack. A lot of people are gone, right? Obviously, that's how it is. The communities also change, don't they? Yes.
of course they leave.
And well, I send my regards to Alex. For example, do you remember Alex?
Who used to be a very
Mischievous guy. If not, he didn't have very good comments. But suddenly, I don't know. Well, I know he's not around anymore. Regards to Suzanne.
at a distance, Susana, who says regards to Susana, but I can't. That was the COVID phrase too.
Yes.
Regards, Susana. Do you remember
Is in the
COVID phrase too?
Yes.
Yes. Greetings. What do you think about Bill Ryan's 2010 interview and prediction about the aliens that turned out to be true? Exactly. With what happened this year, the only thing left would be nuclear war. No more.
Excellent. Let's leave it at that. Let's not go any further with predictions about this topic. Every year, whichever you choose, it's always the same thing. So it's not that she has it. It's that every year she says the same thing. I mean, check it. It always comes to me. Today, isn't it always the big revelation coming every year? Well, Jack himself always used to say that. So in this case, the prediction also applies to Jack because Jack always said the same thing. I mean, and the same with Mausan and the same, as with Jack, that if next year goes well and it's already happening, well, in this case, yes. In this case, it is happening. And well, sooner or later, it had to happen. And now it's kind of ambiguous. This because when the big revelation happened, I would say in any case, for me, the big revelation is when the British were the first to release a lot of official information. I mean, they were the ones who actually published it on their website. If I remember correctly, I think it's about 1,900 files, classified documents that they declassified. For me, that's when the major revelation everyone mentions starts. Not the US one, but the British one, which was extensive, significant, and came from the government, right? I mean, going to the official side, right? And when it comes to the official side, I think the one from the United Kingdom is the best, the biggest. Now, maybe the US has more information, maybe, right? Or actually, I take it for granted that they do. I mean, because they have bases everywhere. So logically, they should have more. That's right, more sightings and more. So the big global revelation came from the United Kingdom. And then I think it was even like an experiment to see what would happen. And nothing happened. I mean, there were some crazy people like us interested in the topic. And well, here we showed you many of the files when the green route was active. And even right here as well. I don't know if it's still there, but if it is, it's very little. You would go to the website and go to the section about these anomalies, and all the documents were there, and you could download them one by one, one by one. And there are photos, videos, testimonies. I mean, not videos, sorry, photos, drawings, and testimonies, but no videos. The thing about videos is new. Videos started appearing in 2018, 2019. Many of these videos that are now circulating as the revelation were already circulating back then. I mean, they're not new. Most of them aren't new, but they weren't confirmed before. So now what's new is that so that video from who knows what year. Remember it? Well, it turns out it's real. It was recorded by the Pentagon, right? That's crazy. Now, the thing is, a lot of leaks are actually real, right? Not all of them, but many are real. So now it's going to be the era of declassification, but also the era of bragging about who was first, right? Or if they're going to be confirmed. Well, the commentators are like, hey, I said it first. You know, it's like that with everything, right? It was about talking openly about the topic already. Look, if we go back a little to the 2000s too, right? The 2000s, right? When did WikiLeaks begin? Does anyone remember? Do you recall when WikiLeaks began? That was also an interesting moment because WikiLeaks reveals that, yes, I mean,
That it exposes him in 2000.
what does WikiLeaks do? What does it reveal? 2007.
around there. Let's see.
Cool. I mean, what does WikiLeaks actually do? What WikiLeaks does is provide information about, what's it called? About what 2006? About what is communicated by, what's it called? The consulates, embassies. I mean, that's what's really relevant there. I mean, that's the important information. So there was a lot of data there. Looked like the consul here told the diplomat over there something, and I don't know what else. And all those rumors, right? And among those rumors, there was information flying objects. So there was a report among many others. And you can check. I don't know if you still can, but you could at least go on WikiLeaks. And it's been a long time since I checked. And you have a directory. So you type it in there, you write and say, let's see, I want the Mexico oil topic. And all the leaked files about oil and Mexico come up. Check it out. This file, it's information that France sent to I don't know where. I mean, look, there's the document. But you put UFOs, orbs, and things like that. And a bunch of documents start to show up about what was being discussed among the diplomats, right, at that time. It's really interesting, super interesting, isn't it? I mean, that's another revelation too. The information was indeed discussed within the consulates, and it was also discussed with intelligence agents. Because former agents have been saying that for years, and so have former military personnel. That's been around for a while too, right? How is Susana Distancia? We haven't seen Susana Distancia in a while.
Yes, greetings, Susanna, and thanks to Anna Hughes for those memberships.
Thank you very much, Susana. Thank you very much, Anna Hughes, for those memberships. By the way, Fosfossil wins it. Susana Distancia wins it. Precisely?
Susanna, is this your first time here since when?
A little while ago, and I saw you.
I came straight here.
Oh, I felt that's all greeting.
Who am I supposed to send greetings to?
Sorry, let's see, it says, and to Diego Sotelo.
Sorry.
Great, Diego. There it is. Thanks so much, Anna, for your support. Thank you.
Marvin says a new Joker appeared in the study of UFOs and Omnis during their investigation. David Potro from Colombia and his real physical spheres. Greetings, Marvin.
Greetings. How have you been? Hello.
Greetings to Perla. Perla says she's waiting for the alien videos. Greetings, Perla.
Greetings, Perla. How have you?
Perla says Groenlandia is not just a frozen island, it's one of the most important pieces on the global chessboard. The United States knows that if it leaves that space open, China or Russia could move their pieces and gain advantages over trade routes, strategic minerals, and military control of the Arctic. Modern warfare is no longer fought only with weapons, but also with position, resources, and dominance.
Well, there you have it. Very interesting. Who says Jalal?
Jalala.
Big greetings. How are you?
A joke for the grumpy. In an office, the boss and his employee. What happened? Can I come in late to work? Because I'm going to be a father. Today? No, in 9 months.
Imagine this.
Already setting aside the date.
Now, once and for all, without that.
So they don't say he's a bad father. He says, it's an old folks joke. When I die, I want to be cremated. I'd rather be buried. And you, Antonio? With all the wine, beer, and liquor I've had, I think I'm going to end up in a bottle. Huh. He's had enough to drink. You're dead. That's it.
I'm just going to put it in a bottle. Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers to Robin. And yes, I think the big revelation will be when the mother appears in a drone dress and the extraterrestrial AICs get off.
That's the main question. Good point, Robbie. What is a big revelation? I mean, what do we call a big revelation? Because at this point, more of the same is no longer a revelation. I mean, you would need, well, I think we would all need to have more action, something more, right? I mean, I don't doubt that some images of these aliens, right? Remember that alien from an interview? The interview is very famous. Some may remember it. There's also a well-known autopsy.
Yes.
There's been a bit of everything. I've seen forensic experts, forensic doctors who say, well, yes, it's real. It's a person. I mean, it's a person. Let's put it that way because we don't know what kind.
It's not going to offend anyone.
It's a person. It's a real person. Another one says, no, it's set up. There are still debates about that. I thought this was over, but it's not. So I don't doubt that soon they'll bring it up again. No, that one's better. But there are other videos that have been circulating for a long time. And they say, well, it turns out that video is actually real. Well, even though it sounded weird and very fake, but yeah, it actually was. Or photos too, right? Photos of these supposed non-human. Well, later you'll know. So what image do you remember? Well, if it was a leak, ha 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 ha, right? If it was real, ha 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 ha, and that's where it ended. I mean, well, those are, to me, interesting revelations, not the big revelation. I would say that the big revelation would be if they officially make an announcement at the World Cup, right? Or something like what they're supposed to do. And that they say, look, yes, there are people. I mean, that they say it openly, right? We have evidence. There is evidence that there is a higher intelligence. Okay. Look, we got cut off exactly when you were saying, well, and another thing that catches my attention is that they're telling religious people, religious groups to get ready. That too. Because they know that, I mean, by telling these religious groups, hey, get ready, it's like a domino effect. There will be other groups, other religious groups all over the world saying, hey, we need to talk to the parishioners. We need to talk to, well, we need to present, well, their point of view, right? About what they think of possible non-human entities on Earth, intelligent and all. I mean, what does this imply from a theological point of view? And to give their own interpretation, right? So what else? What else comes up?
A joke from Margarita, it goes, a psychopath walks into a store in the United States. They give him an assault rifle with a telescopic sight, 4,000 rounds of ammunition, and a box of penicillin. Sorry, sir. Sorry. But we can't sell you antibiotics without a prescription. At least that.
That. Not that, he says. They're ultra-terrestrial beings, says Wilco. I mean, for example, not that. And they said, well, look, they've lived here and they've been here all the time.
So we're screwed.
Don't worry. They've been there for thousands of years. And if they didn't bother you before, they won't now. But now we're entering a period maybe of a bit of paranoia, right? So if it ever happens someday, it would have to be very well planned. Because if not, man, the problem really does get bigger. And no, I mean, they're not demons. I mean, let's stop with that stuff, please. We need to start maturing on that subject. No, they're not demons. They're not. I mean,
Like when they said the white people were called demons when they arrived.
exactly. I mean, no. For example, It's not like, it's like saying, is an owl or a giraffe or a rhinoceros a demon? It's just a living being. That's all, right? Just like you, just like me, just like everyone else. That's it, please. Enough of that. Honestly, those comments really do get on my nerves a bit, to be honest. I'm sending you a shout out, but I'm sorry. No, that's enough. We need to move on to the next level and start evolving a little. Because if not, then we start heading back to the medieval times, right? And those things, look, they're over, right? Cipriano says, why should we accept your interpretation that they're not demons? Yeah. But no, you don't have to accept anything. Don't pay attention to me. I mean, there are plenty of other channels out there. You can go to Christian channels, religious ones, Buddhist, whatever you want. Go with the interpretation that resonates with you, that you like. But I also have the right here to say and comment on anything I want. And precisely, I'm saying that I think it's silly to be saying they're demons. I mean, in that case, I insist anything could be a demon, right? I mean, who's to say you're not a demon, right? Or me or anyone. I mean, anyone can say that. And, well, I mean, what value does that have? If you're going to say that, show me the evidence. Show me your evidence. Tell me. There's nothing. I'm not interpreting anything. I'm not just saying it. You know, it's not like that because there's no evidence. First, show me the evidence those entities exist. They don't exist, right? Let's start from the beginning, okay? Those entities don't exist. And if you want to let yourself be fooled by those kinds of things, like they're demons, that's your decision, right? Everyone can fool themselves however they want, right? Greetings. It says, but baby, they behave like demons. But it says, who said how demons behave?
No, because of the abduction.
Because of the abductions, but
But humans do the same thing. For example, when humans see a new animal, we dissect it. So in that case, we would also be demons. I mean, with that logic.
well, if you go like that, just by going fishing and catching a little fish, you're already abducting a fish, right? A living being. So then, in the end, what does it mean to be a demon? I mean, who interpreted it? Who invented it? Because it's an invention, right? Who invented that topic? Well, religions, right? And why did they invent it? Well, to control, to say, look, here, evil really does exist. And evil is portrayed as a monster or as monstrous behavior. And behave yourself, because if you don't, something bad will happen to you. And well, we know very well, right? That's the interpretation and who made it and why they made it, right?
It says greetings.
How are you, Christina? Greetings.
How have you been? Hello there.
Greetings to Isai Barra. What if they're like the ones in Trump's photo? Let's see, like that, with a square.
This is not the really good one, says Cipriano. All the contacted people and ufologists, the ones I was with in the East. Well, he says the urologists. He says, and nothing. He says the urologists. Basically the fanatics. They convey it in an Eastern philosophy. I mean, they travel millions of kilometers to preach Eastern beliefs. Totally agree with the icon Cipriano. But they're not medical urologists. They're ufologists. Many of them. Not all, because we shouldn't. I mean, we're going back to the same thing, to generalize. No, it's not true that all of them, I mean, some contactees and some of these ufologists, the less serious ones. By the way, they come up with those escalations of, like, if they're philosophers, right? And they bring the whole peace and love thing, which, I mean, that's cool if they're cool people. That's great. That's awesome. But they don't really bring you new information and they just throw you off. This love and peace thing isn't just from the East, right? I mean, Christianity and other religions also bring these messages of love and peace. I mean, the message of love and peace isn't bad, but it's not something invented by UFOs. It's something we came up with. We ourselves have the capacity and are evolved enough to get along and to create concepts of love and to create concepts of respect and so on and so on. Respect for the planet, all of that is ours. We nurture it. We create those concepts of respect because we also are evolved enough to say we need to respect each other and we need to respect the planet. I mean, no, I've always said it. Cipriano for years saying, let's see if you're going to bring me information. And no, millions of kilometers live here and have been here all along. That's probably the most plausible theory, right? I mean, that they're here and they've always lived here and they've always been here since, I don't know, right? But assuming that's the case, right? And that they're ultra super revolutionary, well, that's what I would expect. If it were a message, then you'd expect a message about something that's truly, totally unique and unknown, right? if it's a message that's already out there. I've seen that with viruses or with John Lennon or this post or with Buddhism or Christianity, because I insist there are many things that are similar. There are many connections. Well, then, no. You're not bringing anything new, right? I mean, are you really that evolved just to come and tell me? It's totally true, says PP. I heard on the radio that an app had been made. He says, wait. He says, here it is. He says that when it rains and there are flooded underpasses, it will not
Urgently needed.
take already
Google this.
for driving. Well, but the one I use, I don't. It's not going to tell you if it's flooded or not. That's the least of it. It's just going to tell you don't go that way. And that's it. End of story, right? I mean, I use it every day and I'm really stubborn and I don't want to listen to it. No, I mean, today it happened to me. It was telling me not that way. No, basically. I mean, there's not going to be a way through. It's going to take you forever to get there. And it gives me route one. It gives me a bunch of route options, right? I was lucky that there were a lot of routes. And at one point I said, well, without thinking about it, I'll just take the route Google tells me, and I clicked. Hey, I felt like Homer Simpson when he was with the stonecutters. Remember? Yeah. That he goes and, a tunnel, and he goes through the tunnel and always gets everywhere really early. Just imagine. That's how I felt because I took a turn. All the traffic was stopped, but not for me. I take an alternate route that's literally a parallel street, but it's 3 blocks further down. I mean, I didn't know it. I'd never seen it before. It's an area with warehouses, kind of industrial, deserted. I told my friend who I had to take the synchronized class in a deserted industrial area, like a warehouse district, just like when I took them to school. He looks back. There's no one. He looks forward. There's no one, all the way to the avenue we were going to. We got there super fast. Of course, later we got stuck somewhere else, further ahead. And why did we get stuck? Because it's not allowed. He says that it literally just proves me wrong. It told me to go that way, and it worked out for me. And the next time, well, again, I took the darn route. Same route, right? I had already studied it. So today we went through there again. I took another route and it didn't go well. I mean, it wasn't fast. We, father, nos saltamos todo ese because right now with the subway and the World Cup and all that, there are certain areas, yeah, it's not a coincidence. It's chaos. And it's the same areas you always go through. So
We are developing an incredible amount of patience here in Oleano. Just incredible, sir.
no, but the apps are patient because we don't pay attention to them. I mean, honestly, that's how it is. I sometimes notice a long line of traffic, then see someone suddenly make a strange move and take another street. And I think that's it. Just a few people suddenly choosing the alternative route.
The technology doesn't exist just because I ignore.
I don't pay attention to it.
Greetings to Marvin, to Kudasak. How are you? To Heidi, who says hello. Good evening to everyone. Greetings to Aurelio Garcia, who says daddy, and even more greetings. I do believe in other beings and spaceships. No, sometimes you don't pray. At night, I see lights very high up, way up high. They travel at high speeds and I've seen them flash, says Aurelio.
Thanks to Aurelio for the information. I'll define something for you to review and share your opinion. Let's define what a demon is beyond the metaphysical or religious part. Let's define a demon as someone who is bad, very bad, who wants to do evil, right? That's the definition I received when I was studying as a child in a school run by nuns. Okay, let's define it as someone bad, right? That's what you would also believe, right? I mean, that's what you use as a concept, right?
The concept of a demon?
Which is something
Yes, pure evil.
pure evil. Okay, so let's say that pure evil is a demon. Let's call it that. If we see it that way, then it can apply. There could be extraterrestrials that are demons, but also humans.
Yes.
Humans too, absolutely. I mean, and there are, right? In that case, we can say, look, well, that's a demon. And there, it's not so much that they have little horns or anything like that. No. But their behavior is pure evil. There really are human beings like that. And look, I don't know, right? I don't know what you think, but I don't believe that evil exists in beings, in animals. Because animals are usually, when they attack, it's instinctive, right? But let's suppose it did exist, right? It could exist in the animal world, so to speak, in the world of living beings, things that want death and things that want life, right? So when you want death, pure, absolute death, like cancer, so to speak, right? Which is to destroy everything, the whole entity. So you say, hey, well, that cancer is a demon, so to speak. Let's put it in theological terms, right? To try to broaden our points of view for everyone, right? I mean, from that point of view, we could say yes, right? That's a demon. I mean, not so much because I think it has little horns or that it's that metaphysical being, but simply because that evil exists in that sense, that wants absolute wickedness, right? Absolute death. So that's, let's say, maybe the most cliche term, right? I mean, the typical one from a movie or a story or a book. But, well, from that point of view, I do think there could be beings from other worlds that are like that, right? I mean, by my logic, just like there are good ones, so to speak, there are also those who aren't, right? So I think that's where we could say that, yes, there are bad ones and there are also good ones. And I tell you, if you're interested in the topic, read Salvador Freixedo. Question everything. Don't assume they're all the same. But I find it very interesting because he has that theory. He was a priest 30 years as a Jesuit. So he has a very religious perspective on everything. I mean, his opinions are very focused on religion. That's why I tell interested people, there's a large Christian community here and everyone is respected here. But let's say that from the point of view of this theologian, of this priest, this person says, at one point in the last interviews I saw of him, he said, I believe that most of those beings from other worlds are good. I believe that most of them are. But even if there's one or two bad ones,
Just like on Earth.
Just like on Earth.
Up to this point, we only have one or two. How many beings?
I mean,
Really bad characters, like we can say villains or, well, like Putin, Kim Jong-un. And honestly, for some people, Trump, Hitler, Mussolini, there are just a few. But that's enough. Yes.
yes, enough. I mean, there are few, but enough to make you notice those certain psychopaths, like really crazy ones.
ISIS groups, but there aren't.
Terrorists and all that. You're right, there aren't many. And he gave the example of the apartment building. He says, you live in a building. There are 100 apartments. Everyone is honest. Everyone is good, whatever. But they tell you, one of them is a thief. What are you going to do at night? Lock your door, right? If you knew that 100% of them were honest, you wouldn't even bother. You'd leave your door open. In fact, in many towns, it's common to leave the door open because they completely trust their neighbors and everyone else. But as soon as someone steals, then they start locking the door, right? It's the same here. I mean, no, I don't think we can just trust like that. Oh, sure, let them come from another world. And I mean, no, right? I mean, you have to be really sharp, right? In anything, But anyway, a big shout out. Thank you so much for this membership, for this super chat, which is what I did.
It says, let's see, for example, it says, the message they convey is basically Eastern philosophy. Secondly, it's assumed that an intelligent civilization would be much farther away from us. How do you make contact? Suddenly, multiple species are making contact at once. The thing about the ufologist or, well, urologist, that's just a typo.
I know. Obviously, it's a joke. It's just so we don't take everything so seriously, right? What you, me, and Astrid talk about, I mean, let's not take the topic too seriously either. That's why. If I've teased you, it's just teasing. And you guys should tease me too, right? When you call me Baldy or whatever, it doesn't bother me. It's just joking around, right? Otherwise, things get too serious. And that's not the point. I mean, the idea isn't to fight or argue. It's to talk, to have a conversation, because that's what's nice. And yeah, I mean, it's not that they all wanted to give messages. At the same time, Cipriano, they've been giving messages their whole lives. You're talking about the medieval era. But if you look even further back, mira, when you go and read like the sacred books, like the Old Testament, what does that sound like? What does it sound like when Moses gave those descriptions? No, like basically what they're telling you is messages from a ship, from an object of light that you see, that comes down and gives you certain basic concepts to live by, more or less, right? In peace with your loved ones. And that's it. But that's not just in Christianity. In all religions, there are those kinds of encounters. But be careful. Not all of them are the same. Not all of them are the same. There have been some very dark encounters, very, very tough, very, I would say negative, right? I mean, really dark ones, right? So, I mean, there are, I do believe that there is a war there, right? Or there has always been a war, right? Between one group and another, right? And I do agree at that point with this guy, right? That's why I recommend those books to you. Because I insist not that you should believe everything that's written there, but when you look at history, there has always been something spiritual. That tells you it's like this, or no, it's like that, and all that stuff. But in the end, you have to ask, who does it feed? I mean, who feeds off all the hatred? Who feeds off all these wars? Beyond money, beyond the economy, beyond anything. Who feeds off all that? I mean, what good do all these conflicts do us? Because it would be really easy to get along. Honestly, it would be extremely easy to get along. But there's something more, right? There's something else that feeds that, right? So I want to go further because, well, this isn't really the channel for that. But we can do that on another channel on podcast 78, right? To practice it more comfortably. He also says, where is it? I don't want to miss the other super chat. Well,
Simple.
yes, I saw another one, this one, and we haven't commented on it. Let's see. This is, and it's for her. Greetings and thank you, Rihanna, but greetings, easy.
Doesn't say.
It says that in
In the era of symbolism,
Repeated across different cultures. Make us think that perhaps
they maybe the true legacy is not technology, but understanding, to understand that we are part of something much bigger and that the whole planet functions like an interconnected network linking energy, consciousness, and the universe. Regards, Salomon.
you just made a really great point. I mean, there are a lot of connections even from before, right? Yeah. For example, there are Christian concepts that existed before Christianity. I mean, literally concepts like that. There are Christs in ancient figurines from Egypt and other places where they put a little donkey, right? I don't know if you've seen it. They put a little donkey like this, crucified. And many believe, no, there must be some sacrilegious people. There must be some crazy people there who were against Christ. I don't know what. No, they were before Christ. So, what they believe that symbol meant in ancient times is that it was the power to destroy your... Just imagine that this little symbol, what it meant, is somewhat related to the crucifixion in the sense that you are going to rise to something higher, right? You are going to stop being just human. Man, you're basically going to become the God-man, right? So that concept already existed, right? And even the concept of being born from a virgin and all that existed way before. In different eras, the same pattern was repeated where someone was born who came from... I mean, all those patterns, as you said, are also cycles that we've had. And that, well, now we're living through something very different. I mean, right now we live in a beyond religions, right? We live with a concept. One. I mean, we're literally watching each other all over the planet. No, if a protest happens in Iraq, we learn about it in real time and discuss and see it here. And if something happens, like the sky turning red in Iraq, like today, we find out in real time. Before, those were almost legendary events. They say that in such and such time, in such and such year, the sky turned red in a certain place, and they gave it all kinds of meaning. But now we know that the red sky is just sand. I mean, it's sand that rises up. It's a phenomenon that happens from time to time, and it sucks because, yeah, 2,000 people hospitalized. We live in a very different time, a very interesting, very unique time. And I hope that, and from what I see, yes, I do see, there is an evolution in many ways in human beings. I mean, let's go.
Well, guys, remember that we're on WhatsApp, we're on Telegram, and now you can go fill out the forms for your child. I'm going to do exactly the same thing.
The same thing, literally the same thing.
See you tomorrow. We're also on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
Thank you for your support. We'll keep talking. It's great to have these conversations here. Greetings to everyone, especially those in the community who sometimes disappear. Don't do it so often. You told me.
Remember to share, like, and leave a comment. It's always great.
A hug. Hey. There's this really strange thing, at least new to me. I can reply to you in the comments. So when you leave a comment like, hey, I don't know what, both Astrid and I can reply to you with voice messages. In the comments on your phone, you can listen occasionally since we can't reply to everyone. We'll respond from time to time. Today, I used my voice to reply to 3 comments as a test. Hopefully they reached those who needed them. So in the comments, you'll see us responding from time to time. Well, I hope you like that.
And those who always followed along.
They always pay attention.
We interrupt your regular programming. Thank you for tuning in to The Truth. This is Pepe.
Live. The truth is intense, pure. The extraordinary is real, pure. Here we analyze it. Global focus, don't miss out. Tune into the channel. Pepe Live running the broadcast. Pepe and Astrid telling it like it is. Raw journalism, we keep it respectful here. Turn on alerts, don't lose track. Until next time. Yes, sir!
We're taking attendance.
Pepe.